Hello, I'm Kevin Benedict, Senior Vice President of Solution Strategies here at Regalix, reporting this week from London. And I have today a special guest here, and I'm really excited to talk to him. I want to introduce the CEO of Tantalum Corporation, Ozgur Tohumcu.
Perfect.
All right.
Great
Ozgur.
to be here, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And he's joined by the Vice President of Operations and Program Management and
That's
everything
right.
else,
Yeah.
Tony Lowe. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Kevin.
Tony had to come in on train for about an hour and a half to join us this morning.
Hey, I'm sure it'll be worth
Yeah,
it,
and
Kevin.
you had to dress up on a Friday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us here. Now, Tantalum Corporation to me is just a fascinating example of what is being built in this new economy in the fourth industrial revolution here. It's actually using all kinds of technologies that have been developed over the past even decades, and you're bringing them all together to create new value. So let's talk about that today. So in a nutshell, I'm going to ask you, Ozgur, if in a nutshell, give us, that 30-second overview of what Tantalum Corporation is all about.
Sure. Our mission is to transform your experience in the car. We believe today it's very analog, quite boring. You're completely disconnected from the outside world for the most part. And we want to make it significantly more digital, bring services, monetization. Ultimately, your experience in the car is going to be very much like your experience outside of the car. You're super connected. You have access to information. You have access to convenience features, time-saving features, infotainment. It's all in there.
That's fascinating, and I imagine as cars become more autonomous in their driving, there'll be opportunities for us to consume more services without having to drive.
Precisely. I mean, if you think about it, today, of course, you're still driving actively. Mm-hmm. As cars become more autonomous, more connected, we're going to give people probably the most valuable thing that they need, which is time. And as you have time in your hands, you're going to be able to do a lot more things with that time when the car is taking care of a lot of the basics for you.
That's interesting. So let's talk about what this whole environment looks like and what are all the different components of it. So I imagine to start out with, you need sensors. So you have sensors on the vehicles, so you know as much information as you can about the vehicles and probably also on the individuals in the cars, so you can provide as much service as possible. So if I'm envisioning this right, there needs to be all kinds of sensors. Talk to me about what sensors are available today.
So if you think about it, I think it's a great point, because if we need to look at what has enabled the transformation happening in the car. If you look back maybe 5-10 years ago, a lot of the car companies were able to collect probably 10, 15, 50 points of data within the car. With the advance in sensor technology, the cost going down, the connectivity becoming easier, with IoT standard becoming a lot more standard, and then networks developing, and they're becoming actually data-centric networks, which used to be more voice-centric networks. So the whole technology infrastructure is becoming significantly easier for you to be able to put more sensors, collect data easily, store data, and then transmit that data. If I were to make a comparison, I think like the expectation is in the next couple of years, each car is going to be sending almost 25 gigabits of data every day to the cloud.
25 gigabytes.
So you're talking about massive amount of data being transmitted from the car compared to a completely disconnected vehicle maybe just 5 years ago.
Wow. So I want Verizon out there to pay attention to this, because I used 500 megabyte yesterday and they slowed my service down so much that my map won't work. And I'm in a foreign city without a mapping system that works. You guys need to learn. Okay. But the cars are going to start using 25 gigabytes of data they're going to be sending out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So you need to change that policy, Verizon.
There's some really interesting points here. So my previous role before joining Tantalum, I co-founded the connected car department at Jaguar Land Rover here in the UK. And when we were sourcing the telematics control unit to go in the vehicle, there was discussion about whether we needed a 2G unit or a 3G unit.
Yeah.
So, we went with the 3G unit in the
Yeah.
end, but even that, by the time we got it to market, was outdated technology. 5G and as Ozgur has touched on already, is effectively going to be the enabler for the connected car. The vehicle manufacturers are consolidating the ECUs in the vehicles, they're adding sensors, they're changing the CAN bus, the controlled area network in the vehicle itself, to be able to handle the amount of data that they can collect and get off the vehicle. So as these technologies are evolving, connected cars been around for 10 years, 15 years. BMW, Volvo, they've all had these technologies available for a number of years. But now we're really getting onto the verge of this next generation of connected vehicles. And It's a very exciting time to be in the industry.
So we'll have the sensors that are gathering everything together, the data will be aggregated, and what is the unit on the car called that would aggregate the data from various sensors?
So effectively, it's a telematics control unit that pulls together. But these telematic control units are now being mashed together with other devices in the car, so the infotainment head units. There was talk at JLR when I was there of having an infotainment head unit that had replaceable parts in it, so effectively like the old blades that you used to put in the service, you could just pull things in and out and upgrade the services within the vehicle. If you can upgrade the services in the vehicle, the car effectively doesn't get old from a technology perspective, and it enables the vehicle manufacturers to get the data off, monetize that data either by driving cost out of their manufacturing processes or selling the data and enabling companies like ours to monetize the data on their behalf.
So we have the sensors, we have the network, so the data can be aggregated and brought back somewhere. You'll need analytics to look at it and find meaning in it, right? And that needs to be connected to some kind of business process or commercial environment that has meaning to other people, right? So I imagine from then on, you will have startups saying, hey, look, I can aggregate that, I can add value, and I can sell that back to an end user customer. Where are you finding those opportunities? The opportunities of companies that really see value in that.
Maybe I'll give you a couple of use cases, like really easy ones. Before even I go there, though, I think it's super important to realize like the car ecosystem has been closed for ages. And if you think about it, the vision, if you're an automaker today, and this is no different than like where telcos were 10, 15 years ago. I remember Vodafone and Verizon and some of these other big companies were always trying to build their own closed systems. They wanted to build their walled gardens, like, okay, I'm going to provide you the infotainment, I'm going to provide you with my messaging service, I'm going to give you the marketplace you need. What has happened is over-the-top players came in. The basic messaging became WhatsApp, Amazon becomes the e-commerce engine. So you have these horizontal players come in. I think you're going to see exactly the same amount of and same level of disruption happening in the car. The automakers will be forced to open up the car environment because consumers will want to work with the brands and the types of applications they're used to outside of the car. I think that's super important. So then what happens is, as the car ecosystem becomes more democratized and it's open, people are coming in, different players, I think then players like us are coming in now and actually trying to and working to monetize the data. And like a very simple use case, like how your parking works today in the car.
Yes.
So typically, the worst experience would be you're searching for coins, you're trying to plug in coins into a park meter. That's like the worst case probably, and you're unable to find coins. You go to the grocery store around the corner begging for coins. You're trying to buy a bottle of water because you just need coins. It happens.
I've done that. I've done all of it.
Everybody has done that, right? Because the guy is not going to give you change. The other experience is what we're implementing now. You basically drive into a parking garage. The gate barrier knows exactly who you are because they can recognize your plate. You come in. We know that you're in a parking garage. We have already an agreement with that parking garage because we know your location. We have an agreement in the background, just the example you gave with the ecosystem aggregation. And then you stay there an hour and 40 minutes. You're done with whatever you were supposed to do. You basically drive out of the parking garage. You don't pay anything, you don't do anything. I know that you were in a garage. I know you were there for an hour and 40 minutes. I take care of all the financial transaction in the background. And that's it.
Wow. So
it's super simple.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that's how you would like your parking experience to be.
Absolutely. So you guys would be looking at taking all that data, monetizing it in a service. So taking the friction out of the process of parking, not only finding it, but being able to re-find your car and have it paid for, all of that in the background as a service.
Absolutely, and I mean the whole point of friction is one of Tony's favorite subjects. So you can talk a bit about that as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about going frictionless.
About friction, okay, so I mean, I gave a presentation at the SAP conference in Paris recently about friction and about friction being the enemy to transactions. So there's some really interesting stats. Amazon patented the buy button, the buy it now button. So that effectively was the one-click payment, and they very, very aggressively for anybody who infringed that patent. Now, they had done some research, and by adding one additional step when they were doing A/B testing, one additional step, they lost an additional 40% of the people who had put something into the car by just having one other thing to do. So removing the friction from any transaction is the ultimate goal of connected car, because at the moment your car is almost like a needy partner. You know, it's constantly asking to be serviced, it's constantly asking to, oh, I'm parking, can you put some coins in and park me, can you book me in for book me into the garage? You know, there's
my insurance is about to run out.
My insurance is about to run out. Can you take care of that? We're looking to remove the friction from all these transactions. We've got an experience in app at the moment where we have a chatbot style experience where you put your details in, not by form filling, but just by the
conversation.
The conversation. You know, the app just asks you. Your car just asks you, hey, when am I due for a service? Hey, who am I insured with? How much do I pay? By taking that information, by aggregating that information, we can take care of the vast majority of these overheads that you currently have to take care of yourself within the vehicle. And by doing that, we're effectively freeing the owner from the overhead of effectively owning a vehicle.
So but I can imagine let me ask you, instead of just assuming, do you see ownership continuing to be the model, or do you see more of kind of fleets of car transportation on demand as the model of the future?
The automotive OEMs, if you look at most of them, they're spinning up these little either investment funds, or they're spinning up startup incubators. And if you look at the vast majority of the companies that they're investing in, it's car sharing, it's ride sharing, it's some form of alternative mobility solution, because the OEMs find themselves encumbered by these large dealer networks. They find themselves encumbered by these processes, and they're seeing these startups come up that are and the buying power is going away from the individual and the millennials who aren't learning to drive to the large companies who are providing these vehicles for ride-sharing purposes. So that is where the OEMs certainly are putting a lot of their time, and that should tell you a lot about where car ownership is going to be going in the future.
So you guys, as an aggregator of these services that are tied into sensors and connected to the networks, the cost of sale would be too much. It'd be cost prohibitive to go after individual car owners. So you must be looking at ways of going through aggregated markets.
Sure.
Markets of tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of car owners,
exactly,
and providing this layer of aggregated services to all of those, right?
Exactly.
Talk to us about that.
So let me talk a little bit about how, like in terms of our business model, we approach aggregation from two aspects. One is aggregation of the services. So we work with, now there are a number of digital aggregators emerging in almost all countries, like for repair, insurance, roadside assistance, a lot of delivery services. You almost have like a couple quite robust digital players in every marketplace. So in terms of bringing the connected car experience into the car, we partner with them and we create basically an end-to-end experience. Okay, these are all the services you need in the car, and we work with aggregators. So that's one side. In terms of bringing the service providers in the hands of the consumer, I'm going to be able to offer them a wide variety of services. On the other side, precisely to your point, we cannot go to individual car owners. Our model is what I would call is a B2B2C. So we go after large distribution channels where we have access to, we get access to their distribution channel. So the parties that are currently interested in going to this segment are clearly automotive companies. I mean, if you work with one automotive company, you get access to all their customers. So the discussion with our automotive companies are, why don't you work with us, and we're going to bring you these variety of services and a digital marketplace with a one single click payment all in a box. So you just use that. So that's one. The other is telco operators like Verizon's and AT&T's, and I mean all these players of the world are super interested in increasing their ARPU, increasing their net revenue because it's been under pressure. They're into IoT, automotive IoT. So we're also working with them and leveraging their retail stores where they sell our products to their customers. Ultimately, it's in the hands of millions of their customers.
Wow. So talk to me about the technology challenges that you've had to overcome, and what challenges remain in the system.
So effectively, we touched on it a little earlier on, the infrastructure. So is the infrastructure capable of actually transferring the amounts of data we need to provide the services? So as the bandwidth increases, the amount of data we can take and the amount of data we can use to provide services will increase. But at the moment, we're taking the digital aggregators of services and the best-in-class digital aggregators and bring them together to form a package of services that we can bring to companies. So as we see the technological boundaries disappear with the increase, with 5G, with the other types of technologies that the vehicle manufacturers are putting into the cars, thus we can offer ever richer services. But I mean, we are at the point now, and the thing that was missing when I was at Jaguar Land Rover, and when we were developing the services, and we put it out when I was there to 23 different markets across every single vehicle model line, to over 500,000 customers. The thing that was missing was this services element. Where is the value being added to the customer? We used to see people use the app for 3 weeks while they were showing the services off to their friends, and then usage would fall off a cliff.
Right.
We've got to drive people back into the app, and what the automotive OEMs are desperate to see is the engagement, and the telcos as well. They want to see engagement on a daily basis. The automotive OEM is adding value to the customer's digital experience. The telco is adding value to their life. They're removing friction. They're making things easier. They're saving people time. They're saving people money, and they're keeping you safe. And if they can do any one of those, then they're adding value. If they can do all three, it's a slam dunk.
And I can see in the future here, there's actually going to be two different customers, right? There's going to be the owners of the fleets, the millions of vehicles out there,
Absolutely.
and then the users of those fleets. And the user doesn't really care about the maintenance of that vehicle because they're going to get a different vehicle each time. They have a different set of interests, although it's tied to a car or transportation for a period of time. So how do you guys see that playing out? Would you have two sets of services, or would you just want to stick with the car, or how do you see that playing out?
I mean, our current focus has been mostly our services are mostly focused on the consumer itself. However, that is changing for sure. If you think about it, I think anything to do with the car's maintenance itself, like repair, insurance, probably they're going to merge towards more the fleet owners, and we will be providing aggregation layers, statistical data about the whole fleet itself. Whereas there will always be services geared towards the consumer as well. Maybe like when you're in the car, you will want to be watching if you're a passenger, or obviously not a driver, but like infotainment services are going to be more interesting, maybe time saving. One very interesting thing we're actually thinking about trialing is we have an R&D project called Air.car, and we're actually this is all about measuring emissions coming out of the car in real time. And without necessarily having to deploy a device into the car. We can do that remotely by getting vehicle data through the air. It's quite a complex algorithm, I'm not going to go into that, and it's patented, but what's really cool is One of our use cases is that, let's say you go into a ride-sharing like a company, let's say Uber or a Lyft, right? You're riding in one of those things. And then our vision is I'm going to be able to give you your ride options. And one of your ride options is going to be, do you want to take the fastest route? Do you want to take the cheapest route? Or do you want to take the cleanest route?
Or safest route.
Or the safest route,
Yeah.
exactly. So far we focused on the cleanest route because the other two are already taking care of the companies. Our view is, today for example, in London, we are able to work with the City of London to take a view of how polluted every part of London is. So I know exactly the nitrogen oxide and carbon monoxide levels in the city. So I know, for example, how polluted this area compared to a mile away. So we have that information. We are able to overlay that with your trip information, and I can actually give you an option to say you want to take the fastest route, or if you pay 50 cents more, I can take you through the cleanest route. And I think this type of consumer-centric, still quite integrated with fleet type of services are going to be, we're going to see more and more of these. And if you pay as a passenger 50 cents more, I'm going to be able to say, you know what, I'll take some of it. The ride-sharing company can keep some of it, and the driver will take a little bit of that. I can tell you, I would be more than willing to pay 50 cents for a $15 ride, just so I feel good about it, because you have contributed just this much to the environment.
So that's an example of the more sensors out there, the more data that's available,
Precisely.
the more layers you can add on top of a map. So I imagine you could do the same thing with crime and accident statistics.
Absolutely.
So you could layer those two over and say, if you want to go through the least crime, least areas affected by crime, and you want to go in the you want to drive through the areas that are most green, and all those different things, those are all can be options in the future based on additional sensor data and availability for these publicly available databases.
Absolutely. I mean, this is where we get into really interesting stuff on V2V, V2X, V2I.
And what are those?
So V2V, vehicle to vehicle, V2X, vehicle to anything, V2I, vehicle to infrastructure. So this is what 5G is really going to be enabling, taking real-time sensor data from the surrounding area into the vehicle, and then processing that information and doing something about it. There's what we can do at the moment, which is taking external data sources and overlaying it, but then when we can put some real-time information onto that, as Ozgur alluded to before with the sensor data of where is polluted in London at this particular second in time.
It's so true. I think you're going to see massive use cases in urban cities. If you think about it, today's IoT networks are all optimized for their own purpose, so it's quite isolated. You have an automotive IoT optimized for its purpose, then you have transport, then you have, like home. Whereas I think you're going to see more and more trends with the sensors becoming even more cheaper and more available. You're going to start to see horizontal, like interconnecting different IoT networks and some use cases that we never thought about are going to come in, just like the one you talked about, like crime, your route and who you are. I think all these things are going to be interrelated.
Yeah, because there can be a fast route that's just a really ugly route. All you're seeing is concrete, but you want to see a visually and aesthetically beautiful route.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to have a visually and aesthetically beautiful route, which route would I take? Yeah, so I can see that out there. Well, Ozgur, Tony, this is a fascinating conversation. It's a glimpse into the future for many of us. It's reality today for you guys. The services are here, but to many of us on the outside, this is a glimpse into the future. Thank you so much for sharing today.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you guys out there for joining us today. Thank you.